Okay, so picture this. It is February 24th, 2026.
Right.
We are exactly 4 years into the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And, the world is tired, the news cycle is just exhausting, and tensions are already incredibly high.
To put it mildly.
Yeah, exactly. And then, just when you think the geopolitical chessboard has completely run out of new moves, a massive piece gets slammed down on the table. Today, we are diving into a story involving secret intelligence reports, very specific nuclear warheads, and some incredibly high-stakes diplomacy.
It's a scenario that feels like it was ripped straight out of a Cold War thriller, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
But unfortunately, this isn't fiction. This is on the front page of every major paper this morning, and the implications are significant.
Right. So let's just get the big headline out of the way for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, which is known as the SVR, has officially accused the United Kingdom and France of secretly planning to arm Ukraine with nuclear weapons.
And just to be absolutely clear here, this is not some vague rumor floating around on Telegram channels or, a conspiracy theory from a fringe blog. This is an official public statement from Russia's main foreign intelligence agency.
Which is wild. And that is exactly why we need to stop and really look at this today. It's heavy stuff. But our mission for this deep dive is to look right past those scary headlines. We need to understand why this accusation is happening right now, look at the surprisingly specific technical details they alleged, which I know you have some really interesting thoughts on, and see how this all connects to the peace talks that just face-planted in Geneva.
Precisely. Because it is so tempting to react emotionally to the word nuclear. I mean, it triggers that immediate fight-or-flight response.
Of course it does.
But we need to analyze this as a strategic move. In the world of intelligence and geopolitics, the specific details of the accusation often tell you way more than the threat itself. This really looks like a classic case of information warfare, where the narrative is being crafted for a very specific outcome.
So let's unpack this. Let's start with the source itself, the SVR. For those of us who, get our acronyms mixed up sometimes, this isn't the military guys, right?
No, this isn't the GRU. The SVR is the direct successor to the first chief director of the KGB. They handle external intelligence and espionage.
Okay.
Think of them as the spies in suits rather than the soldiers in boots.
Spies in suits, I like that.
Right, so when they put out a public statement like this, it is never a casual battlefield observation. It is a highly calculated diplomatic signal wrapped inside an intelligence briefing.
And what exactly is the message here? Like, what is their rationale for why the UK and France would do something this objectively insane?
Well, according to the SVR's report, their reasoning is that the West has come to a conclusion that conventional forces, tanks, F-16s, artillery, standard missiles, are simply not enough to defeat Russia.
So because the regular war isn't working, the claim is that the West is just hitting the panic button.
Exactly. The narrative they are building is one of intense Western desperation. The SVR is arguing that London and Paris have looked at the stalemate on the ground over the last year and concluded that a conventional defeat of Russia is impossible.
Wow.
Therefore, to save face or to save Ukraine, they are resorting to the nuclear option to tip the scales.
Now, here is where it gets really interesting for me. Usually when you hear these kinds of accusations from state actors, they're kind of vague. The West is plotting something evil or whatever. But this report was weirdly specific. They didn't just say nukes.
No, they didn't, and that is a key tactic here. The SVR report explicitly identified a specific piece of hardware. They claimed that France and Britain are considering transferring the French TN-75 warhead.
The TN-75. Okay, so I looked this up before we started recording, and this isn't exactly something you can put in a backpack.
No, absolutely not. And this is where the really crucial takeaway comes in. This detail is essential for understanding the deception. The TN-75 is a thermonuclear warhead developed specifically for the M51 submarine-launched ballistic missile.
Wait, submarine-launched?
Yes. These are strategic weapons. They are designed to sit deep underwater on a Triumphant-class submarine, serving as a national deterrent.
So physically, how does that even work? You can't just FedEx a submarine warhead to Kyiv and bolt it onto a Ukrainian drone, right?
Exactly. It doesn't work. And that technical absurdity is actually part of the psychological game, surprisingly enough.
How so?
Well, to use a TN-75, you would theoretically need the reentry vehicle, the highly specific guidance systems, and the massive missile itself. It is an incredibly complex piece of engineering designed for a delivery system that Ukraine simply does not possess and cannot operate.
So why be that specific? If you're going to
Yep.
lie, why not say, oh, they're sending suitcase nukes or artillery shells? Why name drop a submarine warhead component that doesn't even fit?
Because it's about credibility through granularity. In the intelligence world, specificity sells the story.
Ah, I see.
If I say they are sending weapons, you might doubt me. If I say they are transferring the TN-75 warhead assembly from the M51 program, it implies I have intercepted specific documents or communications.
Sounds so authoritative.
Exactly. It makes the layperson think, well, they wouldn't make up a specific model number like that if they didn't have proof.
It grounds the claim in reality. It's that illusion of truth effect.
Uh-huh.
But there was another detail in there that I found fascinating. It honestly felt like a plot twist in a movie script. The report mentions Germany.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The Berlin detail. This is what we call a wedge driver.
The SVR explicitly claimed that Berlin was approached to participate in this secret nuclear transfer, but, and I quote, prudently declined.
It is a brilliant piece of tradecraft, honestly. By saying Berlin prudently declined, they are doing two things simultaneously. First, they are painting the UK and France as the aggressors, the hawks pushing for nuclear escalation.
And Germany gets to be the good cop.
Right. They're painting Germany as the reasonable party within the Western alliance. Think about the political landscape in Europe right now. You have the UK and France, who have historically been much more forward-leaning on deep strikes into Russian territory.
Yeah.
And then you have the Chancellery in Berlin, which has been agonizing over escalation for 4 years. I mean, remember the Taurus missile debates?
Oh, vividly. It was a whole saga for months.
Exactly. So this SVR report feeds directly into that existing anxiety. It tells the German public, your government is the only sane one left, so don't let the British and French drag you into a nuclear holocaust.
Wow.
It is a clear, calculated attempt to sow discord between European allies. Because if you can make the German voter fear their own allies more than they fear Russia, you've won a massive strategic victory.
It is almost like they're trying to isolate London and Paris by patting Berlin on the back. Like, good job, Germany, for not being crazy like your neighbors.
Precisely. It exploits existing political fault lines in Europe. It's basically designed to make the next NATO meeting incredibly awkward.
I can only imagine. So, obviously, an accusation this massive didn't go unnoticed. The reaction from the West was pretty much instant, right?
Oh, absolutely. You had immediate categorical rejections from London, Paris, and Kiev. They did not wait around on this one.
Let's look at what they actually said. We have a spokesman for British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He didn't mince words at all. He called it, quote, completely false.
Short, sharp, to the point. The British approach here is usually to not give the story too much oxygen, just shut it down firmly and move on. They don't want to get into a Twitter spat with Russian intelligence.
And then Ukraine. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hior Tucky called the claims absurd. He noted that they have refuted this exact kind of thing numerous times before.
Which is very true. We have seen variations of the Ukraine is getting a dirty bomb or Ukraine is seeking nukes narrative pop up periodically over the last 4 years.
Right, I remember those.
It usually happens right before a major Russian offensive or a big diplomatic summit. Kyiv is very used to this playbook by now.
But the response that really caught my eye, and frankly made me chuckle a little bit, came from France.
The French response was definitely distinct.
It was snarky. An account linked to the French Foreign Ministry posted on X, formerly Twitter. I have to read this for you. 5 years after their 3-day war, Russia would really prefer they focus on French and British nuclear weapons.
It is a burn, for sure.
I mean, 3-day war, that is a direct jab at the initial invasion timeline from way back in 2022. I love the snarkiness of diplomatic channels on social media. It feels so modern. But is there an actual strategy behind that snark?
It is entertaining, yes, but if we analyze it seriously, that tone tells us something really important. It tells us how much credence they are giving the claim.
Okay, how so?
If the French government were genuinely terrified that Russia believed this and was about to launch a preemptive strike based on this fake intelligence, the tone would be somber. It would be very serious de-escalation language.
By mocking it,
By mocking it, they are signaling to the world that they see this as ridiculous. They are calling it clear disinformation, not just with a formal denial, but with public ridicule.
right.
It is a way of diminishing the power of the accusation. They are refusing to be intimidated by it. It's a status play, really.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like, we aren't even going to dignify this with a serious panic response. However, not everyone is laughing.
Yeah.
We have to talk about the response from Moscow, because while Paris is tweeting jokes, the rhetoric coming out of Russia is deadly serious.
Yes, it is. And this is where we move from the information war side of things to the actual escalation of threat. We have to talk about Dmitry Medvedev.
The vice president of Russia's Security Council.
Yeah.
He is often the one delivering the loudest warnings, isn't he?
He is. He very frequently plays the role of the bad cop in terms of nuclear rhetoric. And his response to this SVR report was extremely explicit,
He warned that Russia would use all weapons.
including non-strategic nuclear weapons.
We really need to define that term for the listener, because non-strategic sounds almost harmless, like diet soda or something.
It is a terrible term, honestly. It usually refers to tactical nuclear weapons. These are lower-yield warheads designed to be used on a battlefield.
Like against troops?
Right, to destroy a tank column or a command bunker, rather than strategic weapons which are designed to level a city like New York or London.
But lower yield is highly relative here. We're still talking about Hiroshima-level events, potentially.
Often much larger than Hiroshima, yes. And politically speaking, there is no difference whatsoever. A nuke is a nuke. Breaking the nuclear taboo that has held since 1945, whether you use a small one or a big one, changes the world instantly.
But here is the part that really stood out to me in Medvedev's statement. He didn't just threaten Ukraine. He said they would strike targets in Ukraine, but also, quote, in supplier countries.
And that is the significant expansion of the threat envelope. That is aimed directly at the populations in the UK and France. It is saying this isn't just a war in the East anymore. If your governments do this alleged thing, you are on the target list.
And to back that up, the Russian Federation Council actually weighed in with some legal, or I guess pseudo-legal logic.
Right. They officially invoked the Russian nuclear doctrine.
Can you explain how that applies here?
So their doctrine states that aggression by a non-nuclear state, in this case Ukraine, that is supported by a nuclear power like the UK or France, is considered a joint attack.
So in their eyes, if France gives a nuke to Ukraine and Ukraine uses it, it is legally the exact same thing as France launching a nuke at Russia.
Exactly. They are trying to create a reverse Article 5. You know how NATO's Article 5 says an attack on one is an attack on all?
Right.
Russia is saying an attack by your proxy is an attack by you.
It sounds like they're building a case,
Right.
like a lawyer preparing for a trial, but the trial is a nuclear exchange.
That is a grim but very accurate way to put it. It is entirely about legitimacy. They need their domestic audience and their international partners to believe that if things escalate to that level, it was the West's fault. They are building a permission structure.
So we have the accusation, the denial, and this massive threat. But the big question I always have with these things is the timing. Why now? Why drop this story today?
Because timing is absolutely everything in geopolitics. Nothing like this ever happens in a vacuum.
Well, we mentioned the anniversary at the top of the show. It's the 4th anniversary of the invasion.
That is definitely part of it. Anniversaries are deeply symbolic moments. It is a time to rally the base at home, remind the world of the stakes, and perhaps reshape the narrative of why the war is still going on.
Like changing the story.
Yes, shifting it to, we aren't just fighting Ukraine, we are fighting the combined nuclear might of the West.
But there's something else happening in the background too. Or rather, something that just stopped happening. Geneva.
Yes, the U.S.-mediated peace talks.
These talks ended on February 18th. And the reporting says they ended without progress.
They stalled completely. Both sides are still incredibly far apart on territorial issues, and this is the crucial context for this whole story. When diplomacy stalls, leverage becomes the name of the game.
So you think this entire nuclear accusation is just a form of leverage?
Look at what Kremlin advisor Yuri Ushakov said. He stated publicly that Moscow would inform the United States about these SVR claims.
They are tattletaling to the U.S.
In a way, yes, but it is highly strategic. They aren't just broadcasting this on Telegram for likes. They are taking the supposed intelligence directly to the White House.
Oh, I see.
They are telling the U.S., look what your allies are doing. This is getting out of control. But if you don't make concessions at the negotiating table, this whole thing could turn into a nuclear crisis.
Wow. So the accusation itself is literally a bargaining chip.
It heavily suggests that. It is a way to pressure the U.S. to rein in its allies or to force Ukraine to accept unfavorable terms just to avoid World War III. It is deliberately raising the stakes to break a diplomatic deadlock.
That is incredibly high-risk poker.
It is textbook brinksmanship. Hold me back or I'll do something crazy. They are trying to scare Washington into putting a leash on Kyiv, London, and Paris.
There's also a historical irony here that we just have to mention. It is the elephant in the room whenever we talk about Ukraine and nuclear weapons.
The Budapest Memorandum.
1994.
Yes. It's really the tragedy of modern proliferation history. For you listening who might not know the history here, back in 1994, Ukraine actually held the world's third largest nuclear arsenal. It was inherited from the Soviet Union when it collapsed.
And they gave it up.
They did. They had more warheads than China, Britain, and France combined at the time. And they voluntarily relinquished that massive arsenal in exchange for security guarantees. And who gave them those guarantees?
Russia, the U.S., and the U.K.
Exactly. The irony is just palpable. The country that voluntarily gave up nuclear weapons for the promise of peace is now being accused by one of the guarantors, Russia, of secretly trying to get them back from another guarantor, the UK.
It really highlights how far the world has moved from that 1994 agreement. It feels like we're on a totally different planet now.
It does, and it underscores why this narrative is so incredibly potent for Russia. It flips the victimhood.
How do you mean?
Instead of Russia violating the security guarantee by invading, they are claiming the West is violating the non-proliferation status quo. It completely muddies the waters of history.
It's basically gaslighting on a geopolitical scale.
It really, really is.
So what does this all mean for us? For everyone listening at home, we have covered a lot of ground today.
We definitely have.
Let's quickly recap this wild ride. We have a highly specific accusation from Russian intelligence about French warheads, the TN-75. We have a very calculated Berlin decline detail planted to split the European alliance. We have snarky tweets from Paris, but very real doctrinal threats of strikes on supplier countries from Medvedev.
And we have all of that wrapped in the context of stalled peace talks in Geneva, which strongly suggests this is a tool to force movement at the negotiating table.
It's terrifying rhetoric, obviously, but
Yeah.
you are saying we should essentially view this as a tactic.
Yes. Western analysts see this as a systematic use of threats. It is designed to shape behavior. It is specifically designed to make Western governments pause, to make them hesitate in their military support for Ukraine out of sheer fear of escalation.
So it is psychological warfare just as much as it is military maneuvering. It's about paralyzing Western decision-making.
Absolutely. It's about making the German voter scared, making the American negotiator weary, and making the French government hesitate. It is essentially a weapon of mass distraction.
Well, before we wrap up today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on. We talked extensively about that Berlin twist earlier, the idea that Germany prudently declined to participate in this alleged nuclear plot.
It is the one detail that really sticks with me.
Right. So if these accusations are indeed being used as leverage after failed peace talks, what does that specific exclusion of Germany tell us? Who does Russia genuinely view as the weak link in the Western alliance? Or conversely, who do they view as the only reasonable party left to talk to?
It strongly implies that Moscow sees a real path to fracture NATO, not through military force, but through politics. They are telling us exactly who they think they can do business with, and honestly, that might be the most enduring challenge of this entire situation.
It's definitely something to mull over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will absolutely be watching this situation closely.
Thank you. Stay critical, everyone.
See you next time.